All right, scholars, time to continue with our Module 3 notes. Go ahead and put your name. Oops. I don't know why I always end up catching the paper at that point. There we go. Put your name and number up in the corner, please. Go ahead and write Module 3 notes right here. And prepare to do something very similar to what you did last time. In the last lesson, 3-4, we talked about how to add fractions with unlike denominators. Well, today for Module 3, Lesson 5, we're going to talk about subtracting. Subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. And really, it's the same thing. Subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. Denominators. There we go. So, subtracting fractions when the denominators are different. Okay. We need our Roman numeral 5, which is just a V. And then we're ready to begin. As with Lesson 3-4, don't really need any vocabulary on this one. Please just remember numerator and denominator, since I'll use those a lot. But we do have a key concept. To subtract fractions. To subtract fractions, you must have like, which again just means the same. You must have like the same. Get that on the screen there. To subtract fractions, you must have like the same denominators for each fraction. If you're adding two fractions and they have different denominators, you have to change them. If you're adding 3 or 4, they all have to be the same. So, if fractions have unlike or different, again, that's just the fancy math way of saying different. If fractions have unlike denominators, there we go. If fractions have unlike or different denominators, use LCM, least common multiple. Use least common multiple to rewrite them. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, see how it works. Step 1. Find the LCD. Now, why is it LCM up here, but then it's LCD down below? Well, when we're dealing with fractions, we want to find the least common denominator. That's a little more specific. We're still using LCM, though. We're using that strategy. So, for example, if I give you 3/4 minus 2/5, we want to find the LCM, least common denominator. We want to find the least common multiple of those two denominators. So we'll start with 4. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3, whoops, almost wrote a 3. Better be careful, Mr. Landre. There we are. 4 times 3. 4 times 4, 4 times 5, and I think a lot of you probably recognize that's about as far as we're going to need to go. Okay. For 5, 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, 5 times 4, will you look at that? Now, technically, each line goes on and on forever, but we don't need to go on and on forever. We have found a number that repeats in both lines. So the LCM of 4 and 5, the LCD for these fractions, is 20. Okay, let's see how we work that into our problem. Step 2. Use the least common denominator, use the LCD, to write equivalent fractions. There we go. Okay. So, 3 over 4 is going to be equal to something over 20. We need to find that equivalent fraction. 4 times something equals 20. I'm going to multiply 3 times the same something once I figure out what it is. 4 times 5 would make 20. So I need to multiply 3 times 5. 3 times 5 will be 15. Okay, so 3/4 is equivalent to 15 out of 20. Not too bad. And actually, just to make sure we're driving the point home, and because I love my arrows, LCD right here. We're going to put it over here also, but I don't think I'm going to have room for arrows. That is how we're going to get our equivalent fractions with a common denominator. Okay, back to business. And 2/5 equals something over 20. So again, if I had space, I'd draw an arrow, but I don't, so I won't. There's my least common denominator. There's 20. 5 times something equals 20. 2 times the same something. Well, most of you are probably yelling at the screen, it's 4. I know that it's 4. Get to the chase. Okay, well, there we go. I will cut to the chase. 5 times 4 is 20. 2 times 4, I have to multiply with the same thing. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, finally, I have my 2 equivalent fractions. Their denominators are the same. Whoops. So I can finally start adding after I clean up the little mess that I made. There we go. Step 3. Slide this up. Okay. For step 3, write the equivalent fractions. Write the equivalent fractions vertically. Subtract the numerators. We've talked about this. Remember, the denominators are just acting like labels. They're telling you how big the fraction is, or how small, I guess would be more accurate. They are giving you an indication of size. The denominator is acting like a unit. So the denominators need to stay put. Don't change them for this. All we're doing is subtracting the numerators and, if possible, simplify. Now, part of the reason why we use LCD, the least common denominator, is so that hopefully we won't have to do a whole lot of simplifying. Sometimes you still do, and that's fine, but LCD limits that. Some of you are probably noticing, well, I could have just multiplied the denominators together, 4 times 5. In this case, you're absolutely right. That would have worked. It will work every time, however. It will not always give you the least common denominator. We've seen some examples in class where it gives you a common denominator, a common multiple, but not a small one. That will usually lead to more simplification. Take your time here, find the LCM. That will save time for you a little bit later. All right, let's write these things vertically, and let's subtract. So 3/4 minus 2/5. Now I know we really could just start writing the the equivalent fractions. They're actually the opposite of simplified. But I like writing these two so that we can see the original problem as we're working. As you practice more, and you're not doing this as part of your notes, you'll probably start by writing vertically. you'll find the equivalent fractions right here, and then you'll just subtract. All right. Let's bring down the denominator first. Okay. Let's do that first. And I know I'm kind of going backwards here, but we did talk about that before. Drop the denominator down. Drop the denominator down. That way we don't forget and we don't accidentally try to subtract it. Now again, I know I'm kind of going backwards, but only, this probably looks familiar, I'm pretty sure we did something very similar in lesson 3-4, only subtract the numerators. I know I'm repeating that endlessly, but it is a big idea. If you accidentally subtract 20 minus 20, then you end up with 0. You can't have a denominator of 0. It, I don't know, destroys the universe or something. Don't do it. 15 minus 8 is 7. Our denominator is already dropped. I'll check this and see if there's anything I can divide top and bottom by, but 7 is a prime number. It is only divisible by itself and 1. I can divide 20 divided by 1, but it doesn't help me any. 7 divided by 1 doesn't do anything. I cannot divide 20 divided by 7. So this is it. This is our final answer. Again, because we used LCD, least common denominator, didn't have to do a whole lot of simplifying. Sometimes you will, but this is not one of those times. All right, let's go ahead and do one example together. So letter C, examples. Okay. We'll do one together, but I might leave you with one extra just to see. Let's see how much time we have in the video. All right, if I give you, and I'll even just write it vertically to start this time, let's do 7/12 minus 1/4. Okay, 7/12 minus 1/4. Now, like I said, if you start by writing it vertically, you can find your equivalent fractions right here. Okay. But still want to find that LCD. So least common denominator of, let's do 4 and 12. Go ahead and slide this up a little bit. There we go. Okay. 4 times 1, 4 times 2, 4 times 3. As soon as you get the other number, probably you're done. Okay. If you get the other one, you're all finished. So 12 and 12. 12 and 12. So I look at the first one. 12 times something will equal 12. Well, I hope you all know that that's going to be 1. So we're going to multiply 7 by 1. And our equivalent fraction will be 7/12. I don't know why the camera keeps flaring like that. Sorry, folks. Let me see if I can focus a little bit better. There we are. All right. 4 times something. That was bad today. 4 times something. Yeah, that's not going to help. 4 times something equals 12. While I was playing with the camera, most of you were probably screaming, 3, it's 3, I know it's 3. Okay, so let's multiply the top by 3. We get 3/12. From here, 7/12 minus 3/12. We just bring down the denominator. 7 minus 3 equals 4. Now, for this one, 4/12, I do want to check and see if it can be simplified. 4 and 12. Well, they're both even numbers, which means I can very easily divide them both by 2. That gives me 2/6. But those are still both even numbers, so I could divide them by 2 again. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now, anytime you have a 1, whether it's numerator or denominator, you're done. I could check and see if they're both divisible by 3, but again, you get a 1, you're done. Some of you may also have noticed I could have just started by dividing top and bottom by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 12 divided by 4 is 3. We've talked in class a tiny bit about greatest common factor, and I know you did that in 4th grade as well. That's how you would go straight from here to here. Either way works. Either way works. Okay, I know I said I might give you another one, but I think that'll do for today. We'll practice some more in class. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Go ahead, save your notes, bring them to class, and I will see you there. Thanks, everybody.